The White House released a damning memo from President Trump's call with the leader of Ukraine after the House opened a formal impeachment inquiry. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. After Democrats announced yesterday that it would move forward with impeachment, the White House announced that they would release notes of Trump's phone call with Ukraine's president in which Trump pressured him to interfere in the 2020 election by digging up dirt on Joe Biden and his son. And suddenly, everyone started speculating that maybe the transcript wouldn't be as bad as we were expecting.
I just don't understand why you do it today.
When you might have
when the transcript theoretically, I'm not saying, could be somewhat exculpatory of Trump.
If the transcript is exculpatory, that's sort of legalese for helpful to the president.
Well, my first thought is that President Trump would not release this transcript if it were not exculpatory.
Yes, he would. Donald Trump is literally incapable of doing anything exculpatory. First of all, he would have to know what the word exculpatory means. Of course, I know what exculpatory means. It means you used to be culpatory. And I mean, he certainly couldn't pronounce it. I mean, yesterday, he couldn't even read the word tire off a teleprompter.
Americans will never fire or tire in our effort.
Oh, my God, he couldn't read a one-syllable word. And I love the irony of saying Americans will never tire while you're standing there looking like you just drank a bottle of NyQuil during a gas leak. Americans will never tire or fire. Also, I love that thing he does where instead of correcting himself, he acts like both words were right. Like he's reading a Dr. Seuss book. Americans will never fire or tire or get stuck in the mire, but they'll definitely hire a liar who perspires. So at first, some people thought the notes from the phone call would somehow clear Trump of wrongdoing, and then there was the question of whether this supposed transcript will even be complete, because as we all know, White House transcripts have been edited before. I mean, remember, this is the guy who literally doctored a hurricane map by drawing a circle in Sharpie to include Alabama. There was a good chance the supposed transcript would come out, and the first line would be the president of Ukraine saying, "Thanks for being so innocent, sir." Then there's the fact that actual transcripts of Trump's words are often incomplete because even the world's best stenographers have no idea what he's saying. Like the time the Associated Press put out a transcript of an interview with Trump, and there were sentences where even the reporters could not understand what he was saying. These are sentences from the actual transcript. Here's part of your story. It's going to be a big unintelligible. I'll tell you, the other thing is unintelligible. We've been working on it. Unintelligible. Secretary Mnuchin is a very talented person, very smart, very successful, unintelligible. Let me leave a little room just in case unintelligible. My God, unintelligible should be his Secret Service code name. Unintelligible is on the move. He said he was going to McDonald's, but we think he means McDonald's? And then, of course, Trump himself was going around insisting repeatedly that he did not pressure the president of Ukraine to investigate a political rival in exchange for hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid.
That it was a totally appropriate conversation. It was actually a beautiful conversation.
There was no quid pro quo. There was nothing. It was a perfect conversation. The conversation, by the way, was absolutely perfect. It was a beautiful, warm, nice conversation. The conversation I had with the president of Ukraine was absolutely perfect. The conversation I had with the president of Ukraine was absolutely a 10. It was perfect.
A 10? Why are you talking about a phone call like you're creeping on women at the beach? That call is a 10. Wait until you hear the jugs on that call. So there you go. The media speculated that the call would be exculpatory, impeachment calls would be premature, and Trump said it would prove he was innocent. They all said there's no way Trump would be dumb enough to release a transcript in which he commits a bunch of crimes like asking for a personal political favor in exchange for hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid. And then this morning, Trump released notes from the call in which it turns out he was dumb enough to commit a bunch of crimes like asking for a personal political favor in exchange for hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid.
Here's what the president said, quote, "There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
The first investigation that the president brings up with the president of Ukraine, this is immediately following the Ukrainian president's mention of military aid and how he wants to continue with military aid from the United States, which we know at this point a large portion of which had been suspended. Here's what the president says in response to that conversation. I would like to ask you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot, and Ukraine knows a lot about it.
In an official call with the president of another country, he literally brought up Joe Biden, Rudy Giuliani, and said the words, "I would like you to do us a favor." It doesn't get more obvious than that. It actually would have been better for Trump if the whole transcript had just said unintelligible. And when Trump asked for the favor, it wasn't just an innocent request. As this call was happening, Trump was holding up hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine that Ukraine desperately wanted from the U.S. In fact, Trump specifically brought up the Biden stuff right after the Ukrainian president brought up that military aid. In the memo, the Ukrainian president said, "I would also like to thank you for your great support in the area of defense." And then the very next sentence out of Trump's mouth was, "I would like you to do us a favor, though." That is an obvious quid pro quo. The only way it's not a quid pro quo is that when it comes to committing crimes, Trump is definitely not a pro. He's an idiot. It's more like a quid idiot quo. He literally said, "I'd like you to do us a favor." He might as well have been having this meeting at his daughter's wedding while petting a cat. Or, if not a cat, one of his other pets. Let's remember, Rudy Giuliani was a private citizen, the president's personal lawyer, who was on a fishing expedition to concoct a fake scandal and get Ukraine to manufacture dirt on a political opponent, Joe Biden. The fact that his name came up on this call even once is insane, but look how many times Trump mentioned Rudy. Mr. Giuliani is a highly respected man. He was the mayor of New York City, a great mayor, and I would like him to call you. I will ask him to call you, along with the Attorney General. Rudy very much knows what's happening, and he's a very capable guy. But he's not. He does not know what's happening, and he is definitely not a capable guy. For one thing, anytime he does an interview, he looks like a guy in a haunted house after a zombie just popped out of the bushes. In fact, Rudy has spent the last few days spinning out live on national television. First, he tried out some prop comedy by showing everyone his phone in a Fox interview, and then showing up to another Fox interview reading a book. Why is he doing prop comedy now? Here's a phone, here's a book, and here's one of my puppets. He's actually my brother. Also, I can assure you, Rudy is not a highly respected man. In fact, just to give you an idea of how little he's respected on Capitol Hill, Politico reported today that, and this is real, at the House Democratic meeting this morning, Rudy Giuliani was the butt of a joke. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries showed a Seth Meyers sizzle reel of Giuliani's recent cable appearances. The room erupted in laughter. That's right, as House Democrats, as they were meeting to discuss impeaching the President of the United States, they were watching a sizzle reel of our Rudy Giuliani jokes. Wait, does that mean I could get called as an official witness in the impeachment? Oh my God, I mean, I already have my testimony prepared. Yes, Mr. Chairman, while I do not have any insights into Mr. Giuliani's conversations with Ukraine, I can confirm that he does in fact look like he accidentally stuck his in an electrical socket. Yes, you heard me right. So you got the president dangling a quid pro quo, asking for a political favor, and repeatedly prodding a foreign leader to speak with his personal lawyer and manufacture a baseless smear of a political opponent. Just what we can see in this memo alone is impeachable behavior, let alone what's in the full whistleblower complaint. I mean, can you imagine how bad that full whistleblower report is? What else could it possibly say? After the call, Mr. Trump then stood up, tripped on his tie, fell headfirst into a garbage can, got up, ran into a wall, knocked himself unconscious, woke up and screamed, "Where am I and who my pants?" Today, Trump actually met with the president of Ukraine on the sidelines of the United Nations and claimed he hadn't pressured him, while also insisting all he cared about was corruption.
You know what? There was no pressure. And you know there was, and by the way, you know there was no pressure. All you have to do is see it, what went on the call.
Would you like President Zelensky to do more on Joe Biden and the investigation?
No, I want him to do whatever he can, but whatever he can do in terms of corruption, because the corruption's massive.
Oh, you want him to do something with corruption? Okay, well, he's sitting right next to you. Did he bring his handcuffs? Because when it comes to stopping corruption, one thing's for sure, the president of Ukraine will never
fire or tire.
Now, one big question looming over the impeachment debate has always been the political impact. How would it affect Trump's chances of getting reelected? Would it cut into his chances or would it solidify his base? Some Democrats have been scared that impeachment would somehow be good for him or play into his hands. We have to drop this idea that Trump is playing three-dimensional chess. He's more like a guy who ate a chess piece, is now choking on it, and instead of gesturing for the Heimlich maneuver, eats another chess piece to dislodge the first one. In fact, Trump himself has made this argument that he wants to be impeached because it would somehow be good for him politically. In fact, he repeated that claim again yesterday.
The country's doing the best it's ever done, and I just heard that she'd like to impeach. Our country's doing the best it's ever done. They're going to lose the election, and they figure this is a thing to do. This never happened where we're in the election. And, I mean, if she does that, they all say that's a positive for me from the election. You could also say, who needs it? It's bad for the country.
Of course, his first priority is it's good for me, and then he throws in as an afterthought, also it's bad for the country. He's like an athlete who bet against his own team. Yes, the Patriots scored a touchdown. I mean, damn, let's go Jets. The reality is that if we finally have a real formal impeachment process with hearings and votes, we'll all get to see actual evidence of Trump's serial corruption and lawbreaking live on national television every single day, and that's a huge deal. Now, just before we taped this show, Trump held another of his signature off-the-rails press conferences where he once again lost his mind on national television. First, he started out by claiming the whistleblower who reported on his conversation with the president of Ukraine didn't have what he called first-class information, although it was hard to follow what he was saying.
The so-called whistleblower, the one that didn't have any first class or first rate or second tier information, from what I understand. You'll have to figure that out for yourself.
First hand. He didn't have any first-hand information. First rate, first class. Didn't have any first base information. The common phrase, first base information. I mean, why does he make us try to figure out what the hell he's trying to say? You'll have to figure out what I'm saying. I'll say words, then you guys put them into sentences. Then Trump complained that because everyone was talking about Ukraine and impeachment, no one was covering how hard he was working during his meetings with foreign leaders.
The sad thing about this hoax is that we work so hard with all of these countries, and I mean, really hard. I've been up from early in the morning till late in the evening, and meeting with different countries, all for the good of our country, and the press doesn't even cover all of this.
Early in the mornings and late in the evening. So you mean a work day? You had a work day. We start in the morning, and then we stop for lunch. It's called a lunch break. First I've heard of it. Then we have meetings again at night. I'm working like 8, 9 hours a day. Trump wants us all to be impressed by how hard the job is, but we knew it was hard. You're like the only one who was like, presidents work mornings? What we saw in today's memo alone is impeachable behavior, and Trump and his lawyer keep going on TV and confessing to more crimes. When it comes to corruption and lawlessness, what we saw today was
Absolutely a 10. It was perfect.
there's been a closer look.